I've just come back from Adepticon in the USA, one of the most world-famous conventions for miniature wargaming, and it has completely changed my perspective on everything. I've been in this hobby since childhood, and that means over 20 years. And yet this trip has made me realize things that I've been blind to for the longest time. So come with me on the journey to America as I tell you the story of how it happened and really what's changed for me. The story begins with an impossibility. We could not go to Adepticon. We desperately wanted to, but for those who followed the channel for a while, we've not been in a position to do that. And even with the success of our Kindred of the Abyss campaign, it's really critical that we use the funds raised for that to work on the next project. So we couldn't justify the trip. However, desperate to make it happen, I reached out to a bunch of sponsors. So today's video is brought to you by Corvus Belli. Yes, they responded with not only an affirmative, but enthusiasm, excited to bring me across the pond to Adepticon to come and visit them, to check out their games and really become part of the conversation. Now, being a hobby content creator, you often don't get as much time as you want to work on your projects, but I did manage to squeeze in a little bit of painting at 35,000 feet in the air. Now, the other big change at Adepticon is the location has moved. It's been at Schaumburg in Chicago for a little while. That's right, it's moved to Milwaukee. It's a much better location. The conference center is newer, it's more brightly lit, and the first thing and most important thing is it's more centrally located. Not only to the airport, which is only a 15-minute Uber ride away, but also to bars and restaurants, which means the whole place is way more self-contained, and I think that's a fantastic step up. And it was really interesting for me. I'm a lifelong Warhammer fan, and one of the first things I do at a convention like Adepticon is sail straight across to the Warhammer section, look at Golden Demon cabinets, go see the shop if there's any Forge World or anything to buy. But this time, I didn't immediately do that, instead going straight for the vendor hall. These vendors are exhibiting their games and also their products, and it's a great opportunity to actually meet the real movers and shakers in the industry. Adepticon in particular is unique because the people you're shaking hands with and saying hi to are often very importantly positioned in the companies. This is the place where you get marketing directors, CEOs, creative designers, leads, all of these people actually working the booths, which is kind of cool. Thomas Perrinon was there with Trench Crusade. You could go up and speak to the legendary creator of Mordheim and now the rules designer of Trench Crusade in person at the event, which is just a unique opportunity that you don't get anywhere else. Patrick Keith at Bombshell Miniatures handed me a couple of minis that are very sister themed to give to Jen as a little bit of a taste test. He's keen to work on the Sisters of the Old Blood project. Not only that, but I got to see Victoria Lamb again, who I've spent a bit of time with in the past, and grab her cool Adepticon exclusive miniature. There are also fantastic beloved companies that I love, such as Artis Opus. Byron gave me a dry brushing tutorial that was truly fantastic. And one of our patrons, Dan, was showing off his paint line, Bear Cavalry Paints. So I got to see them in their unique bullet-shaped glory at the event as well. There are so many burgeoning IPs. It was so easy for me to forget that predominantly people are coming to this event, or did originally, for Warhammer. It was in the first couple of days I realized I hadn't even thought about Warhammer. I was so invested in seeing these new things. Cyberpunk Edge Runners minis. Modiphius were there showing off their Fallout miniatures based off the TV show. And I got to meet the charming and lovely creators of Ark World from Warp Miniatures, which is this charming Terry Pratchett-esque game from England, and it was just so cute. It was also great to catch up with sponsors that we'd worked with previously. I saw Loot Studios with Malediction, and they were doing fantastically, managing to sell out of all the copies of the physical models that they had on the day. And Malediction is truly a game that you have to demo to understand. It's a super fun game, but it feels a little bit weird and different. However, in and amongst all of this, right at the entrance to the convention, right near one of the main gates, was Corvus Belli. The people who'd sponsored me to come over, so it was pretty important that I go check them out. I had a little bit of trepidation because I'd not actually played Infinity or Warcrow, the games they wanted me to share with you. So one of the first things I needed to do was get in and get a game demo. And this is where I really started to get a feel for how things are changing. I was talking to Max, who's the new marketing team lead, about what Corvus Belli was trying to do, about what their desires were and what they wanted to share. And the thing that resonated with me is that what Max wanted to get across the most was actually just how good the community was. He had this opportunity to kind of tell me all these selling points of products, and he chose to talk talk about the Warcrow, which are a group of people who basically organize and run tournaments and demo games for Corvus Belli. These dedicated fans spend their own time and effort in local game clubs, becoming like the locuses of Infinity and now Warcrow in their local scenes. And I met a bunch of them and they were all super lovely. And upon doing this, I realized that this is not something I'm really familiar with from other companies. This idea of brand ambassadors and putting a lot of focus on the fans and sharing the game was really community centered, and I liked the sound of it. And when I was looking around the convention hall, that's the big thing I was seeing. It was community. Across all these games, people were grouping together, getting excited, and even supposedly competitors. Companies with stalls next to each other were poring over each other's minis and just being really excited to be part of the miniatures community. And one of the great little moments I saw was actually Carlos when approached by two young children who asked about Infinity, and like the Corvus Belli Santa, he just pulled minis out of his pocket and gave it to these kids. It was actually really sweet to see. So many content creators, we live in our little bubbles making our stuff, and it's so easy to become disconnected from this amazing sense of community. And that's one of the big things I saw at Adepticon. Working alongside Corvus Belli at their booth was Warsenal, who have an amazing range of pre-color printed MDF terrain. And we got given the Pseudomata shrine. I actually requested it because, you know, I'm a weeb. I went to Japan for my honeymoon and it looked really cool. So, and the quality of it is so good. I mean, why do we muck around building and painting terrain for our war games when this exists? I mean, unless you like doing it. But if you're just a gamer, like, come on, this is great. This is good stuff. But it wasn't the only thing I saw at Adepticon, because of course, there are a whole bunch of content creators there. This was a fantastic opportunity to meet them. And if you ever go, pretty much everyone goes. It was my first chance to meet Peachy, Louise, and Rob from the UK. And it was fantastic getting to say hello.
Dave, if you had to choose one influencer here at Adepticon that you would not want to date your sister, who would you choose?
Me. That'd be really fucking gross and weird.
It's such a whirlwind of activity where even as a content creator, actually managing to snag 5 to 10 minutes of time with creators you want to hang out with is extremely rare and difficult. It was extremely humbling for those who came up and said thank you for our content, or good luck, I'm glad you're still going. So thank you for those who did see me there unexpectedly and said hello. I got to say hello to some of our wonderful patrons too, which was fantastic, and it's great to put a face to the name. Another evolution that seems to be happening these days is content creators producing products. We at Tabletop Time are beginning to produce a line of miniatures that started with the Kindred of the Abyss, and at Adepticon it was amazing to see Jeremy, Black Magic Craft, with Idols of Torment. It was so cool to see this booth. He has such a good style, including having vinyl records available, which stuck with me obviously. Jeremy at Black Magic Craft also gave me the Dungeon Door Guy, which is one of the most cursed miniatures I've ever had the pleasure of owning. This is a door with a butt, and it's a door with a butt. What else can I say? Casey from eBay Miniature Rescues and Brent from Goobertown Hobbies were also showing off their very cool stamps. They had some for me to give me and show off, and remember how I said Adepticon was wildly busy? We never got around to it, but needless to say, they are really cool and such an innovative idea. And despite all the hustle and bustle, I did manage to score a single game of Spearhead, and I played this with Eons of Battle J and the crew there. They're doing like 3D printed terrain that is like faction specific, that fits for Spearhead and for other fantasy games. It's super cool. Go check it out. There's this spirit of collaboration and innovation that you can't help but get excited by. It truly inspires you. And I thoroughly recommend anyone who's never been to a major con that is more than just a tournament to go and attend, say hi to the vendors, and really remind yourselves what's exciting about the hobby. One of the things that happens though when you get to these places is you get introduced to new games. Hey you! Have you heard about Infinity? It is the tactical skirmish combat game by Corvus Belli. They have a brand new release. It's the Imperial Service Action Pack that I'm holding right here, and you can see the minis going around here. This is an update to a beloved faction that's been long awaited, with models receiving brand new sculpts. There's 10 characters in this pack, and it is the perfect way to start Imperial Service, which is a sub-faction of the Yujing. I love the style of the Koga Ninja and also the Bayaya. Look at this this awesome robotic guard beast. It's like a velociraptor robot. It's very Dino Riders and I'm here for it. Now this faction specializes in battlefield mastery and surprise attacks. They've got camouflage markers and infiltrated troops, and with concealed deployment they can strike exactly when you want them. Surprise your opponents with some really cool tactical gameplay. If you're looking for a war game that still has the feel of tactical combat and provides an exciting challenge, have a look at Infinity. It has all the benefits of being a long-standing IP with multiple graphic novels, stories, and a huge range of factions and miniatures. Now that I've seen these new action packs, the new branding and packaging, and great new ways to get into the game, I'm really excited to see the future of Infinity, and I hope you are too. Links are down in the description if you want to check out Infinity and the new Imperial Service action pack, and doing so will let Corvus Belli know we sent you, which obviously makes us look good. And now let's get back to hearing about Adepticon. So now I activate my camo marker, and Vaughn, you do something really cool with the edit, right? It wasn't just Infinity that we got set up for miniatures for, I also got to do a demo game of Warcrow, and I have to say the new elves, the Seanan, are so cool. It was such a contrast with Games Workshop showing off the ancient wood elf sculpts for Old World to see these gorgeous Seanan coming out of Corvus Belli, which, to be completely honest, from my perspective as a painter in 2025, there's no contest. It blows the socks off them. So I'm really excited to paint them up. But speaking of Games Workshop and wood elves, it does bring us to the elephant in the room, and that is the giant elephant that is Games Workshop. Games Workshop and Golden Demon are an immense presence, and one of the reasons events like Adepticon can be so successful. We almost all love Games Workshop and love Warhammer, getting into it and starting with all that stuff. So the big revelation I've been working towards is how little I cared. I think it's pretty telling over the last year or two how Warhammer has been so successfully marketed and advertised to everyone. There's games like Space Marine 2, they've got an Amazon TV show coming, even though Corvus Belli has an animated show that's going to be coming first, right around the corner. I didn't know that. Did you know that? Warhammer basically dominates the conversation, and yet it's starting to feel a little bit like Marvel. I saw the reveal show and everything that came out was pretty good, right? Pretty good. Except Grand Cathay. Grand Cathay blew the socks off everyone. They look amazing. But we had servitors that looked like really generic guys that were all super uniform and didn't really look like servitors. They just looked like guys in jumpsuits. We had some pretty cool Tyranids, and we had some Space Wolves that I'm sure Space Wolf fans are excited to get, but Space Wolves aren't my jam, and it was just more of Disney's Marvel's Warhammer. So for me personally, I'm not sure if I've gotten a little bit tired or if it's just the marketing mill is so dominant that I just wasn't that interested. So this time around, I only made it to the Games Workshop store at 5 p.m. on the Saturday, and I basically walked through it, skimmed some shells, and walked off. I found universally when it came to the GW reveals, everyone was just kind of like, oh yeah, you know, it was cool. And it was in this environment I didn't even know that it wasn't just Games Workshop that did reveals. They dominate the conversation, and I think Adepticon was really good at taking my blinkers off. I looked around and I said, there's so much happening in this game. There's so much to be excited about. Corvus Belli, of course, sponsoring me and bringing me to all their events, was the group I got the closest view behind the curtain of. And the Corvus Belli reveal show was fantastic. What made me laugh a lot here was Carlos presenting the show. Internal to Corvus Belli's team, he was making fun not only of Corvus Belli, but also of other companies. Talking about their imminent TV show, that the pilot is produced, the trailers on YouTube, it looks awesome. Animated a little bit in the style of Arcane, but also willing to make jibes at the fact that they've released 5 of the same popular character model and maybe they need more. Poking fun at some of the factions people have been asking for, but in a really self-aware way. And after all these reveals were said and done, everyone was asked to line up. They were asked to get a free mini. They just walked past and were handing out special minis for everyone. I just thought the whole atmosphere of that reveal was really cool. It felt a little bit less orchestrated, a little bit more rough around the edges, but a lot more human, a lot more hobbyist. And as Games Workshop becomes a monolithic mega company, it was very cool to see that comparison. But it wasn't just Corvus Belli that had cool reveals and cool releases. So many games companies were really hyped up to share the things they were talking about. The team at Modifius were pumped to tell me some of the stuff they're working on. It's a really good time for alternate miniature wargaming. As busy as I was, I did also get time to catch up and meet for the first time Jackson Jewell and the entire Golden Dragon Games team. And for those who've been following the Kindred campaign, I do have a special little teaser here. We have the first prototype of the Kindred Crab Submersible. We've loosely been calling it that. We're gonna give it a proper name eventually when we write the lore supplement, but for now, it's the little crab walker and it looks fantastic. The top submersible part actually detaches, and I've asked for Jackson to sculpt in a little flying stand accessory so that if you want, even though it doesn't really make sense, you can just have it as a submarine kind of hovering around or displayed on your shelf, which I think is awesome. The things actually latch onto the crab legs. It's so cool. We'll talk about it in another video, but it was really exciting to see the prototype, and this is the first time anyone's ever seen that. So we'll be updating our backers on Monday and letting everyone know that it shouldn't be too long before they get their hands on this model. But aside from the model, it was fantastic to get to know the Golden Dragon team, see more of Marcher and what they were working on, as they basically just posted up around a table in the open play areas and were running game demos of Marcher for the whole weekend. And that's the kind of vibrant, exciting indie attitude that these events kind of foster. One-page rules were just across for them, running one of their first tournaments of Grimdark Future, and the vibe was electric everywhere. So this journey got me to a place of reflection where I could really sit back and look at myself in the hobby. I realized that maybe the things I thought I cared about more than anything actually don't mean as much to me as I thought they did. My indifference to the Games Workshop reveals sort of felt like deconditioning myself to the hype train. It felt much the same way as I did when I watched Infinity War Part 2. I closed the book on that Marvel franchise and I sort of said, I don't need to watch every film anymore. It felt freeing, it felt liberating. And looking around at Adepticon, at all of the creators, at all of the games that I had taken my fancy, whether it be Ark World, Fallout Factions, or the brand new games I walked home with in my arms, Infinity and Warcrow, there's a lot more out there happening in the hobby space. And I think the conversation needs to start to move towards that. I know a lot of content creators kind of go on an anti-Games Workshop thing. I'm not like that. I still love Warhammer. I think we can all love Warhammer, but I do think there's more out there, and I didn't realize just how much more out there was. Last year when we went to Adepticon, I described the mood as awake. No one knew at the time, except for Murray, Jen, and I, who had booked our vacation, that this was probably, as far as we were concerned, the last time we would ever be able to go to Adepticon as content creators. We were pretty sure the end of our YouTube career was imminently looming over the horizon, so there was a bit of a sadness, a melancholy, and a bittersweetness in the air as we tried to get the most of an experience that could never live up to expectations of people trying to live sort of their last day, if that makes sense. However, sitting here a year later in reflection, thanks to all of you, thanks to our patrons who heard us saying we're struggling and supported us and continue to support us and make this possible, thanks to the people who backed our campaigns like Kindred of the Abyss, and also sponsors like Corvus Belli, who were willing to fly us to America, fully understanding that a huge part of that is that it allowed me to go and network. It allowed me to talk to other brands and sponsors, to try and organize deals and arrangements that will keep us going into the future. I think Corvus Belli's attitude throughout this entire project has really endeared them to me. They've been so lovely, and it really feels like help from that outside quarter you never expected. However, ultimately, when I got back home, holding their brand new Imperial Service Action Pack for Infinity, and in my other arm, holding the JSA Starter Pack that they gave me for Infinity, I was rudely robbed because Murray and Jen just took them. Fair enough, I went to Adepticon. Apparently Murray's collecting Imperial Service now and Jen's collecting JSA. So cool, I'm gonna have to grab some Pano. I think I've got an old limited Joan of Arc model lying around that I really wanna paint up. So if I could leave you with anything today, it would be take off your blinkers, have a look around and see what else is out there in the world of miniature gaming. I'd really encourage you, if you're one of the people like me who wasn't sure about Infinity because they'd heard things about it, maybe it just wasn't the game for you, to give it a second look. It's actually updated and changed a whole lot. The models are metal, but they're really good. They're really easy to work with. It's not the nightmare metal of like 1992. And also, if you like crunchy tactical combat that rewards high skill play and has a really good back and forth, Infinity might be the game for you. Something that's been distancing me from Warhammer a lot lately is their constant obsession with oversimplifying it for the Timmies and the young kids in the audience, which is fine. You're allowed to do that with your game. game, but Infinity definitely felt like a game that has that little step more tactical nuance for those who love a bit more old school wargaming. That said, it was super accessible and I was taught how to play it in about 10 minutes, so maybe I'm crazy and it just meshed with me. Thank you once again to Corvus Belli. You are making dreams come true. This has really been a massive thing for us, and I hope you in the comments showed them some love, because no one else would do this. We reached out to like 20 different brands. Big thumbs up. Tabletop time is in your corner, Corvus Belli. And we got links down in the description for you to check out more of that. Next week, we'll be back to your usual style of video because of course it's only once a year we get to go to Adepticon, but I hope you've enjoyed this story. If you got to this point in the video, I would love to hear from you down in the comments. What are your stories of times you've realized that you've been sort of pigeonholed or narrow-sighted into this world of wargaming? What are some new discoveries you've made recently? Did you go to Adepticon or a similar convention and find a new game or world that you're really excited about? I'd love to hear your stories down below. We do read all of the comments, even the mean ones, even the sexy ones. In fact, probably it would be better for my health if I didn't read all the comments. So yes, I'd love to hear from you. And I've prattled on long enough. We'll see you in the next one.